This video is designed to help next level your gameplay for open field fighting. Whether you've got a really stacked roster or very basic commanders and you're entering your very first KVK, the concepts presented in this ultimate guide for field fighting will dramatically level up your skill in the open field, which is going to save you resources and speed ups and get you wins. And speaking of skillful execution, let's check out the sponsor of today's video. This is the sponsor of today's video, Warpath. It's a city building war game that even has a little sniper mini game where you and your teammate navigate through a series of obstacles, and your timing and accuracy with a sniper rifle is absolutely crucial as you take on secret missions in order to progress your accounts. This is just one of many systems in Warpath where they've put in a lot of attention to detail. In fact, I want to start to show you some of the weapons and weapon systems. They've taken a lot of time and effort to make things look and feel as they did in real life. The maps are inspired by real locations, and the intent is to make you feel like you're really there. But of course, you're going to need a good strategy if you're going to beat your enemies. Let me take you in game. This is my city in Warpath, which is recovering from my last hustle. And if you want to win fights, you're going to have to recruit the right officers to get the job done and pair with the best units you can get your hands on in order to smash your enemies in combat. You do have open field controls, which we like to see, and I can send marches as individual units or in a group to the location of my choice. This, of course, is not a game where you win alone. You've got to join an alliance, and your alliance together can help propel you to victory against your enemies. You really are counting on your alliance to be there and to have your back. But what I do find unusual is that Warpath is actually hosting tournaments where there's an upwards of $15,000 worth of prizes in the pool that anyone can participate in and win. So be sure to check out Warpath using the link in the description. Doing so will support the channel and also let the developers know that I sent them your way. You can download Warpath and start playing right away, and you're going to want to bring some friends, so use my link in the description, and of course, you could always use my Discord server to find a group. You know, it's funny to think that there was once a time where people would make the argument that field fighting was a waste of resources, and it's hilarious to look back on that time because now I think there's a common understanding that field fighting and how well your kingdom handles itself in the field is critical to whether or not you're going to win objectives and get good trades, which is a multiplier on your speed ups and your resources and your ability to win. So in this video, we're going to do a couple of things to dramatically level up your gameplay. The first thing we're going to do is define some terms. These are things you need to understand in order to even have the right vocabulary to talk about how to field fight. This is things like, what is an engage? What is a disengage? What is turning? What is skill cycling, rage capping, and so on. From there, I'm going to reference some really high-level KVKs and what top-tier teams are doing, which has huge implications on how you should play. And I want to tell you up front that this is not a guide about talents and commanders and equipment. I have dozens of guides for every single commander and all the different equipment, including best equipment sets and so on. Links for all of that sort of stuff is in the description of this video. The final thing I want to do is give you some very practical guidance based on the release of the PC version, which in my opinion has dramatically elevated the level of skill with which you can execute against everything I'm going to tell you in this video. And if you're not playing on PC, that's fine. You can still take these concepts and run with them, but you can execute, I think, more cleanly with the PC version than anything else the game has ever had in any prior moment in time. So let's kick things off, and we'll start with the first term. By the way, there are going to be timestamps in the description, so if you're like, bro, I know what these things are, you can just skip those parts and go to the next part. Let's start with the first term we need to review, which is the engage. Now, the engage refers to the moment with which you make contact with the enemy and actually start the fight. It might seem weird, but this is absolutely essential to how the remainder of the fight is going to go. If you have a bad engage on the target, then you're going to have a bad rest of the fight. If you have a good engage, that sets you up for success on the rest of the fight. I'll talk more about what makes for a clean engage or good engage and a bad engage throughout this video. The next term we need to talk about is called peeling, and it's rarely done in Rise of Kingdoms, but I think that that's a mistake. Peeling is when you try to remove the marches from another player or just stop someone from attacking one of your allies. And you can't really peel for yourself. Like, you've mostly got to do that for another player who's in trouble. And I'm putting Richard I on the screen because, as an example, the one main way you can peel is by slowing an enemy. And Richard I has an instant proc 50% slow. But the very act of attacking an enemy with all your marches, even if you are nowhere near them, will often make them run away. So you can peel for your allies who are in trouble simply by virtue of targeting your enemies very strategically. Now, the next crucial term we need to talk about is rage loading. Rage loading is where you try to get your rage meter really, really high when you're fighting one opponent, and then you target something else very abruptly. And when you do so, you're able to transfer all that rage into your next fight and get a massive advantage. Rage loading and rage transferring is the most critical thing you need to understand about open field fighting. The more that you do this, the better. And there are also times, on the flip side of things, where you rage drop. Rage dropping is where you lose all of your rage. Your whole rage bar goes away. There's a couple situations that can make you rage drop. When somebody enters into a resource node or city, you can have all your rage on all your marches disappear. That's super bad. When you leave combat, you can rage drop. You'll lose all of your rage in that moment, which is why you want to stay in combat for as long as you can. This is especially true because there are a lot of buffs and debuffs that will apply based on your active skills firing off, including generating more rage, which means the longer you stay in the fight, the more you can rage transfer and the more damage you'll deal. This brings us to a basic but important term called skill cycling. Skill cycling is what happens when your rage bar gets full. Your primary commander uses their active skill, then there is a second of downtime, and then the secondary commander uses their active skill. This whole process is referred to as skill cycling. The reason you want to rage transfer is so that you can skill cycle more quickly than the enemy does. This means that you will do a bunch of damage or buffs and debuffs before they've even used one of their active skills, which dramatically advantages you because a lot of the way that you deal damage in this game is based on how many troops you have. So if you do all your damage before the enemy, when they hit back, they are going to do way less damage because all of your stuff fired first because they have less troops. The next idea I want to present to you is called turning. Turning is where you dramatically shift your direction or the way that your marches are going in a very unexpected way. Turning is when you look like you're retreating and then flip all your marches around to hit an enemy very suddenly. They didn't expect it, and they usually are not prepared. You usually do this in a way that's advantaged, and you typically do this because your marches are rage loaded and you're already running and you just want to get into a slightly better position. Turning is extremely powerful. This is true in every single game I've played that involves positioning of your troops or a commander or a hero. If you suddenly flip on an enemy, they often can't handle it, and they will often get out of position chasing you down thinking that they're a winner and they're going to get you, when in reality, you are about to trap them. The next thing I want to show you is called targeting territory. I'll use this term in streams, like I'm retreating to city or targeting territory, because when you target your territory, you get a march speed boost. Now, the game doesn't always show you this, which is super weird. You can see when I target this territory over here, this is Alliance territory. If I hit march, the game's telling me it's an 8-minute, 32-second walk, which is actually untrue. If I go up here and I hit march, which is off Alliance territory, it's telling me less time. Watch the actual time from the moment I leave this resource node. First, I will do off territory, which technically you can see it says it's less time because it's physically closer. Watch this. When I do this, the actual time for the walk is 8 minutes and 22 seconds. Now I go back into this node and I'm going to go to that same spot, but now look on territory. And I want you to see the magic of what happens here. Over 8 minutes to do that walk, targeting territory slightly further away even. Okay. I start that walk. 6 minutes and 56 seconds. A dramatic over 1 minute reduction in my walk time here. Targeting territory is massive, and guess what ends up often being on territory? It's your city, baby. So retreating to your city is an important tactic, depending on whether or not you're on your alliance's territory. Remember, in KVK, you can teleport onto coalition territory. Maybe we'll get into some of that advanced stuff later in the video or cover some other time, but the point is, retreating to your city is a powerful tool which we'll exploit later in the video. The next thing I want to talk about is called getting a free ride, and you'll hear me use this term in my live streams to describe when I get to attack an enemy who's walking in the direction I wanted to walk anyways. So my marches will travel in a direction I wanted to go anyways by attacking somebody, which is way better than just walking there, because not only am I going the way I wanted to go, but I am generating lots of rage as I go there, which I could potentially rage transfer onto some other target. And as we start to weave together some of these ideas, you can see how one person can absolutely mess up and engage for an entire alliance by being out of position. They give the enemy a lot of rage, and they end up giving the enemy a free ride up to your murder ball, and then they engage you, and your enemy has a ton of rage because somebody was out of position. There's a lot going on in the field fighting in this game that if you don't understand what's happening, you get wrecked, and if you understand what's happening, you can manipulate it in your favor. Let me show you a short clip that puts together everything I've talked about so far, starting with peeling, through rage transferring, engage, the whole 9 yards. I gotta save this guy. Save them! Oh, he's turning. He's running. He's gonna turn on me in a second. He's gonna turn on me. No. Don't, dude, you're gonna die. Don't chase this. Don't chase that, buddy. You're gonna die. Don't chase that. You gotta know when to engage, when not to engage. This is a no engage situation. No fly zone. Outnumbered 2-1. That's a no engage situation. Okay, let's set up the engage. We set up the engage. Let's go. Okay. Other people want to stand around over there. That's fine. We set up this engage. See who's awake on their side. Okay. We're setting up for it. Okay. Engaging. Clean engage. Half their team's asleep. Half their team's afraid. Clean engage. Can I pull him in? Bait him in. Bait him in. Bait him in. Turn. Okay. Oh, we got an XY baited. Turn on it. Oh, clean. What a clean engage that was. That was a clean engage. Easy. Wow. Okay. Okay, here we go. I'm targeting my own march instead of the XY. Disaster. Target that XY. Don't think I targeted the XY. How about now? Easy. Gone. Disappeared. Absolutely disappeared. Said so on the screen. I'm not being rude. That's what it says in game. The final thing I'll mention before we switch gears and talk about what top tier kingdoms are doing is there is something in the game called rage capping, and this is really important to understand. The way that rage works in this game, very, very simply, is that when you attack a target, your rage will go up. You'll see the bubbles go up next to your commander. When you reach 1,000 rage, or whatever the rage requirement is for your active skill, your commander will use their active skill on the next turn. This also means, by the way, that if you have more than 1,000 rage generated in total on your rage bar, everything above and beyond what you needed for your active skill is actually wasted on that one turn that you got to over that rage requirement, which you can see for some commanders it's different, but for the most part, the rage requirement's listed here and it's 1,000. The other thing that you need to know about rage capping is that you can only get 220 rage per turn or per second. This information was very much popularized by John Wick, and now that that information is widely available, you got to keep that in mind when you think about lots of rage generating effects, but I'm getting ahead of myself yet again. By the way, I've made over 1,700 videos dedicated to making you a better governor in Rise of Kingdoms, so consider subscribing to the channel so that you get my next daily video direct to your feed. The next big idea that we need to talk about is what some of the best kingdoms and the most skillful kingdoms in the game are doing when they fight in the open field. And there's a few common patterns that you observe when you watch 60 GT, or really 1960 as a kingdom, when you watch 1V and their kingdom fight in the field. These are kingdoms that have won Osiris League championships. Here are the crucial things you need to know. 1, they stay in big groups at all times. Yeah, a few people probably run off and do their own thing, but for the most part, they are in large groups together to get an overwhelming advantage. It's very easy to understand that even if you were less skillful than your enemy, simply having more of you is really crucial. So getting people all together in the same place is very important. This is also true, by the way, even if they are outnumbered in the map in multiple locations. What they will do is group up in one huge ball and go from location to location to try to get the enemy to have their forces split up. And although that can suck a little bit for defending objectives, it makes it so that each part of the field that they go to, they are able to dominate. They also tend to stay in the fight for longer than average, and that is because they are taking advantage of rage loading. Very obviously, that's what they're there for. Even though the trades get worse and worse the longer you stay in a fight, because your marches get less and less health, the thing is that you generate a lot of rage simply by generating rage. This is true because of talents. This is true because of skills. But to just give a quick example, you probably already knew about Rejuvenate, generating rage after you use an active skill. You knew about Trajan, generating rage, or Joan of Arc, generating rage when they use their active skill. By simply staying in combat when you have a half-full rage bar, sure, you're not doing as much damage because you have less troops, but if you're able to keep rage transferring from target to target to target to target to target, you want to stay in combat because the amount of damage you do is through the roof compared to the 10 to 13 seconds it might normally take at the start of a fight to generate lots of rage. This, by the way, is, I think, the reason that a lot of high-end players seem to be obsessed, dare I say, with war drums, because it gives you a lot of rage, potentially front-loading how fast you can use your active skills. So they'll use a lot of war drums and a lot of Horn of Fury to try to generate a lot of rage really quickly to make it so that they start firing off their active skills more quickly. Now, all this stuff, you don't have to take my word for it. You can check out my streams where I covered these KVKs, and also Dragothian, who was playing in the 1960 KVK, has talked about a lot of this stuff pretty extensively. So now that we've covered the crucial terminology and what the best kingdoms in the game are doing when it comes to fighting in the open field, now let's get to the practical aspects, and in particular, if you're using the PC version, the things that you really need to know to get an edge when you're fighting in the field. Now, you can also do this on iPad or iPhone or, well, any mobile device, really. I just personally play on my iPad. Well, I played on my iPad exclusively when I was streaming because of how smooth the experience was. But I don't think I crashed a single time on the PC version when I was field fighting in KVK on my restart with these new PC version controls, which are absolutely amazing. So I'm going to run these marches out to the field. Now, the first thing you need to do, let's actually, F it. Let's just use the garrison march. It doesn't matter. I'm not actually going to field fight right now. The first thing you're going to do if you use the PC version after you get your marches in the field is put them into a group together. You're going to push Alt. You're going to select all your troops. Then you're going to hit Control 1. All this information, by the way, is available to you in the settings. You can see what the shortcuts are, and you can look at what these troop shortcuts are, and you can even change them around if you want. I personally use Formation 1, and I add the troops to Formation 1. It's a pretty straightforward way to go here. So I now have my troops in this formation. Now, if you're playing on a mobile device, the way that you are able to control all your troops is by double tapping them on the right-hand side, right? So I'll double tap. This is the same as it would be on a mobile device, and then you can drag and drop to where you want to go. And if you're playing on a mobile device, instead of sort of hovering your mouse where you'd want to go next, the thing you do is you hover to where you want to go next. You have your marches already selected. So you try, if you're playing, again, on a mobile device, to have your screen zoomed in to whatever part of the fight you really need to see, to the level of zoom that gives you the precision you need, and then you just wait with the drag and drop for wherever you think you're going to go next. Now, as I mentioned, the thing that I like to do is get into a good position before a fight, and then load up a bunch of rage if I can, on a target that's relatively out of position, and then transfer that rage onto something else. When you do this, there's a couple things that can happen. First of all, many enemies are just going to freak out when they have like full rage bars dumped on them before they even are anywhere near getting their active skill, and they just freak out and they run away. And by the way, then you can enjoy a free ride off that player to wherever they're going, potentially transferring over to your next target so you don't get too far out of position. Some number of people are, of course, going to just stay and fight. They're not going to realize what's even happening. They're just going to get wrecked and be like, wow, I got wrecked. What happened? And in that case, you just want to be at that right level of zoom, ready to just target the next thing and move on that target. And some number of people are ultimately going to try to bait you, where they're going to retreat, and then they're going to try to suddenly, boom, turn on you and just like unload their rage on you. And this is really important to understand about a turn. The way this move works is that you retreat back to like your city. For example, you can see I march faster, as we talked about, because we targeted territory. And then all of a sudden, boom, you flip around before your rage bars have dropped. You rage transfer on whichever one of their marches is faster. Now, why is this technique powerful? Not only have you rage transferred, but often because you are targeting territory and they are not, that means that you are able to move faster than their marches. But if I actually go further away from my city, to illustrate this idea just a little bit better here, you can see that when my marches all start at the same place and then retreat back to my city, some are obviously going faster than others. And this is going to be true of the enemy that's chasing you. Their cavalry march is going to get probably ahead of all their other marches. When you turn on them all of a sudden, their other marches are probably going to be a couple seconds delayed to catching up with you potentially as well. So you can turn on an enemy, unload a ton of rage on their one march that's actually able to keep up with you, and just smash them so hard that they have second thoughts about staying in the fight. In fact, now the fight even may be in your favor. The next thing you need to know is about disengaging from a fight. What happens if you need to leave a fight? And you have a couple options here. One simple option, especially if you're using the PC version, I really like this, is I push 1, which is my control group for everything that I use. I just put everything in the same group. Technically, you could use multiple groups. I haven't found need to actually do that yet. People say, like, put your tanks in front and other stuff in back. But then you just got to click more. I just have one group for the full army, and I just go boom. I go 1, R. R retreats you back to your city. Now, this is important to understand because it's so fast to do, and you can see the R's on here. They're telling you how this works. But the reason I like this, and you'll see on my streams when I'm fighting, that often my marches will like flash, like the circles around them. That means I've issued the command repeatedly to go back to my city. I just want to make sure that that command goes through. So just running away is like obviously a simple thing that you can do. Of course, you're not here to learn that you can just run away from an enemy. There are other alternatives, like, for example, whichever march you see that they're targeting, not only can you be running back, but then you can drop one march into a resource node. Now, by dropping into a resource node, there's a very high chance that the enemy will actually leave combat and rage drop. They'll lose their full rage bar. This is also true if you're walking by a flag that the enemy can't target. You bring your march into the flag, or multiple marches, depending on the capacity of the flag, and then not only have you escaped the fight, but they also rage drop, which really wrecks them. So if you see an enemy that is on their way toward a flag or back to a city, like, yeah, you kind of want to chase them, but once they get too close to their city, or once they get too close to the flag, you actually want to target somebody else so you don't rage drop. This is stuff that I was covering extensively on stream, and I'll have a card up in the top for that. So like you saw right then, my XY went back to the city. So I actually was a little late to switching off the XY in that instance if I was actually targeting it. But you want to switch before they go to the city so you don't lose all your rage. The final strategy for escaping a difficult situation is to unfortunately make a sacrifice. And in this instance, if they're targeting the XY, you basically retreat everything home but have the XY stay, right? So the way that I did that really, really quickly is I have my group and I had the whole group retreat, but then I targeted the XY and dragged it, or you could use the F1, F2, F3 commands off to the side. I actually am going to rebind those because I don't particularly like F1 as the command that I use there. But you sacrifice one march. Now, why would you do this? The reason that you want to sacrifice a march in some circumstances is that if you are full retreating, the enemy is getting a free ride off your marches. So what that means is they often will kill more than one march if they are free chasing you and none of your allies are nearby to do anything about it. So if you're in a bad situation, you might want to sacrifice one march, right, as you retreat all the others so that the enemy stands still fighting your one march because they want their free kill. And the smarter move for them is potentially to chase the whole ball. But often what you'll find is that they just go for the one march that you're giving them. And in the very least, you're using some skills on that march before it dies, and you allowed all your other marches to escape. It's definitely not a good situation to have one of your marches be kind of fed to the bear. I'm sure you're familiar with the joke that you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than the next person who's also running from the bear. But basically, you sacrifice your own march to the bear in order to let the other 4+ live. I honestly have to say that if you simply want to get better at playing the game, consider playing on a PC. And I know that's going to make some mobile players upset. And realistically, I think that the mobile controls and the PC controls ought to be equally excellent, if at all possible. And they ought to add a few things that give you some really fast ways to issue the same sorts of commands we were just talking about. Like a button that's on your screen, for example, to select all your marches and retreat home would be pretty freaking amazing. That will be very powerful on a cell phone. But we don't have those options right now. And until we do, I think the PC version is the superior version to play. And people were asking me in my live stream, like, Chisgule, you know, do you think you're going to keep playing Rise of Kingdoms for a while? And I said, absolutely, man. Look, these controls are actually make it infinitely more fun to play in the field. You're going to feel like an absolute bozo when you're learning them because it's going to be clumsy. Even though there aren't that many buttons, just trust me. You can see me do this on my live stream where I'm like, I can't target anything. And I'm a complete noob at the start of the pass opening. To the end of it, I'm doing all kinds of stuff that's just absolutely disgusting. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm saying the controls on PC are really, really, really powerful as you start to get good at them. And I am not even that great at them because I'm still not issuing march by march commands all that much. Although I will point out in my live stream the other day, I did march by march command to position around a flag, and then we swarmed it. And it was absolutely freaking awesome. So if you want to see that, the card will be up in the top for that live stream. Also, consider checking out the sponsor of today's video, which also has a very high skill cap, especially in the new sniper game mode that they have, which is pretty damn fun. And if you enjoyed this video, throw a like on here, subscribe to the channel. If you want to see more detailed examples of me spending time doing lots of field fighting, narrating what I'm doing as I'm field fighting, card will be over here. And if you're just looking for general advice about commanders and investments that you're in a better position to be field fighting at all, then I'll have a card over here for that as well.